The only other piece of news that we have is the introduction to First Strike, which is the inspiration rune that Aidan and Colton talked about last week,
Yeah, they
where
just, like, gave a lot more information about it, like,
yeah.
mainly because, like, Colton and I also, it was at the very end of our, like, hour-long fucking tirade of items and shit, so we kind of just went, hey, this is the new item, this is our quick thoughts on it. For those who didn't listen last week, First Strike is a rune where if you hit an enemy first, in the next 3 seconds after you hit them, your attacks and abilities deal 12% bonus damage, and you get 100% if you're melee, 70% if you're ranged of that bonus damage of the 12% as gold, and it's on a 25 scaling down to 15-second cooldown. I think it's like good. Like, a lot of people think it's like fucking OP as fuck, but I think a lot of people don't understand that you're giving up your keystone to take this. You're also going into inspiration tree as your primary to take this. They do talk about why they put inspiration, because it does seem like kind of almost like a domination type keystone in my opinion. But they went inspiration tree is like kind of meant for like rule bending is like really what they define it as.
Yeah, this really makes me think of it as, especially like with that particular cooldown, it feels like Klepto in a lot of ways.
Well.
And one of my first thoughts when I now saw it is that I'm wondering how it's going to interact with like damage over time abilities, because like I'm imagining a Teemo taking this top because he doesn't really need any particular keystone. And like if you're against melee, you're always going to get first hit, and you're not going to get like a ton of damage in that window, but you're going to get like 10 gold every time. And then late game, like every time somebody just steps on a mushroom, you get like 15 more gold. Like I think that that's where we're going to see this item used, much more similar to how Klepto was used, as opposed to like, yeah, but what if Rengar ultis on me and just gets the kill gold plus 400 because he did 1 million damage?
Yeah, but then his damage is severely nerfed by not having Dark Harvest Electrocute, something like that.
Yeah. I guess like you have the 12%, which maybe 12% equals like electrocute or whatever damage at like a certain point in the game. But yeah,
but he also would have to have gone inspiration primary, so he's got 3 dead runes basically.
Yeah, because you're not going boots probably on jungle. Yeah, it fucks up.
I mean, like boots on jungle is I think still really good. Taking magical footwear, and then
you just kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still actually really common on a lot of junglers because like you can just like play around it, and that you're gonna get your boots at like 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think boots are the best rune in inspiration, like entirely.
Yeah, it's huge. They're crazy. But that's where I'm thinking we're gonna see First Strike is it's gonna be on characters that can afford to go inspiration and just take like cooldown and some biscuits and like kind of useless shit because they're Ezreal or they're Teemo and they're just gonna proc it 1 million times.
Fair enough.
So yeah, if you do want to compare it to Klepto, right? Like outside of the abusers of like, say Ezreal was probably one of the biggest abusers, or honestly just top lane characters in general at the highest level of play. Like was it Khan or was it Nuguri? I think it was Nuguri last year, or 2 years ago when Klepto was in the game. He pretty well ran Klepto on every single top laner in the game, just always. Because if you're a really fucking good player, just abusing this and then playing safe without a keystone and just having extra gold just allows you to carry like way more games. I personally think for average level of play, it's only going to be taken on characters who don't have a good keystone. And I don't think they're the ones that you typically look at, but like, for example, I think it's going to be insane on Alawi. Why? Not that Alawi's going to use it that well, but it's the same thing with Klepto. Klepto is Alawi's best rune at like the highest level of play because she kind of blows dick with all the other runes. So if you can just, whenever you have your combo up, your E into like whatever, you get, I don't know, an extra 50 gold or whatever. That's fucking great. You're just accelerating your build to the point where like your character doesn't suck, right? And
yeah, and I think we're gonna see this used on all of the characters that used Klepto well.
Yeah,
like Teemo, Ilaoi. We're gonna see it on Jace. We're gonna see it on Ezreal. And any of these characters who don't have a super critical keystone to run, right? Because like you're not gonna not take Electrocute or Conqueror on a lot of the other characters who could theoretically cash in on it, especially not when you then have to give up something like Sudden Impact or Ravenous Hunter in order to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Sorry.
Right.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. It sounded like you still had a little bit of your point left.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, that's who we're gonna, I think, see first strike
Yeah.
on. That, like, it's gonna be those characters that have used Klepto, and we'll see if it's enough. I mean, the fact that we don't have now like the RNG of the item, where like sometimes you would just get one that was super good, or when the skill elixir was one of the potential
Yeah.
drops. The fact that it's just straight gold now is really interesting. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a healthier thing than Klepto was, and a little bit more straightforward. But yeah, I'm just thinking through, like, Gnar, I think, is another one that could absolutely use this. Like, obviously he's great with grasp or fleet footwork, but I mean, if you go the Iceborne or Frozen Fist build, like, you can really, really easily use the bonus movement speed. Like, you can just sit around procking it all day with your Q, and then
Yeah.
just get to like 2 items a little bit faster, never engage with your opponent, and like
Yeah, for
become
sure.
a big, big, beefy boy.
Yeah. Only other thing in this dev blog is just that they're also removing prototype Omnistone along with this. They pretty well cite that, like, they don't think it's that bad. It's just one of those things where players don't want to fucking learn how to use this. It's just too complex and too confusing for the average player. And if they just buff it to make people use it, they're pretty scared of it just being like a must pick in pro play, because pros would abuse and learn this like way quicker than the average player base. So, which I think is like,
I
fair.
really wish they had taken a different approach to Omnistone rather than just remove it. I don't think it had a place in the current meta,
Yeah.
or the current like place. I don't know, space that League is in. But I think it would have been really interesting to see it like, okay, if you're gonna commit to having access to all of these runes, like, I don't know, use them or be punished, and you should be rewarded for utilizing them. I think, I, I don't know, just ballparking. I think it would be really cool to see the cooldown of when you get new runes reduced, or new keystone, sorry, reduced when you actually utilize the keystone rather than allowing it to time out, or letting it, giving it a window where, like, okay, if you activate your next rune within 10 seconds, the next one's going to be 1 second faster or something like that.
Yeah,
But
I think that sounds really, really good in theory, but it's just so limiting on which, like, certain keystones are going to be impossibly easy to like proc, where it's like, oh cool, I used my fleet footwork, versus like I got Conqueror fully stacked, or right, or like if I
Yeah, but
don't have hard.
that's the trade-off between
Mhm.
like taking the rune and being able to utilize it efficiently and making the most out of it, versus like, well, like, this is obviously a much stronger version of keystones is what I'm describing. And I
Yeah.
think that's the trade-off is, okay, sometimes you're going to be able to proc it, and you're going to be able to proc 5 keystones in 30 seconds. But then there's
Mhm.
other times where you're going to sit on Aftershock because you're Twisted Fate and no one's going to let you gold card them,
Mhm. Yeah, I guess my thing is just, there's like such a huge gap between the keystones and like condition to activate, which, I mean, I think that works fine, and like that's going to be right, one of the weaknesses of the rune is that you
Mhm.
might roll one that's really conditional.
Mhm.
But I could imagine it being very frustrating. It's like, oh cool, they got like fleet into airy into comet, like they didn't actually have to do anything to proc
Yeah.
3 in a row.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
But that, I mean, that
that
would be
the
kind of the
trade-off.
point of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things. Pros will always abuse like certain things, and I think it's like hard to balance a game around like the highest level of play and the lowest. Like a great example of this,
That's
which
true, yeah.
we're not talking about it until obviously the patch next week, but like they're buffing Riven, right? Next patch.
Yeah.
Which is fair. She has a negative win rate in every single ELO other than Challenger, so she probably does need a buff. But it is weird to buff a character when the number one player on the server is a Riven one trick. You know what I mean? It's
With
like
what win rate?
61.
56? Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty
it's like obviously when the character's played well, the character's fucking strong, but like I don't know. It's just the reality is like characters being hard or runes being confusing and stuff like that makes for such a fucking disconnect between like higher and lower levels of play. And I think we're always gonna see stuff like Omnistone have issues or characters have issues being balanced and stuff. And it's really strange. But
I think that one of the biggest things here though is like it's is the breakpoint actually a challenger like it's a sub 50 in Master and Grandmaster also?
Yeah, it's obviously lower sample size. Like I'm sure those will vary constantly, but like
yeah, but I think that that's like one of the indicators the character probably isn't built in a super healthy way that allows players who don't, who aren't the top 0.001% with 1,000 games on the character to succeed.
Yeah.
Like, if a character, hits 50% win rate at Diamond and then like 52% at Master Plus, I think then you could say it's like, okay, that's just a high skill ceiling character, right? Like you just have to be really good at the game to play that well. But if players in Masters and Grandmasters still can't figure it out, like that, I think at that point you can probably say like something's wrong with the character design and like the way you have to interact with that champion is probably not the best, and maybe they want to look at that. And I think it's still right, like you have to super animation cancel fucking everything to be effective on her.
Yeah.
And
like I mean, I think it's the right game design philosophy. I just think it's funny if you're a general sniper, like being a Riven one trick, being number 1 on the ladder with the highest LP ever in NA, and they're buffing your main character.
Yeah,
it's like what like how dude, he's living the fucking life. It's just funny, right? Like, it's like you're literally rank 1 on a ladder and they're buffing your character. Like, oh my god, it's funny.
That must oh god, that would feel so fucking good. Like, can you imagine, Aidan, when like they rework Tom Kench, you're starting to just dumpster people, climb. Like you pop into Master with 65% win rate and they're saying, we're gonna buff Tom Kench.
Yeah. It's cool though. I definitely like to see people make characters that are harder to play work. It's really cool. But that's kind of, I guess, first strike though, and how that will change up the meta a little bit. So I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure.